Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Board of Selectmen's meeting. This is April 12th, 2018. We have a very interesting agenda tonight, and first on the agenda is we have a release deed to execute about the cemetery boundary line, and this is such an interesting story. Mr. Ramsey, would you take the lead and just explain about how the line is being corrected at this point?
Certainly, Madam Chair. So about a year and a half ago, an error in the boundary, I think it's a southern boundary line, looking at the cemetery on the right, was discovered. The town meeting last year authorized the selectmen to fix it in working with the abutter. So it took a while to get to where we are today, but the solution was basically a parcel swap. In your packet, there's a plan which identifies two parcels. The abutter has already executed his deed to exchange the parcel in error, and he's also conveyed to us the proper deed, so that on the plan as you're looking at it, the top line is the original boundary of the cemetery. The bottom line was the altered boundary line that was in error, and it's that middle line which should have been and will be the correct boundary line after both deeds are executed and recorded at the registry.
The non-straight line.
Well, it is a straight line.
It's straight, but it's not.
Yeah, what I call the middle line.
Right,
so,
right,
thank you.
So with that execution, we will have fixed the problem to everybody's satisfaction.
Excellent. I certainly remember this, and all of us were a part of the site visit.
It was a beautiful spring day
Yes, it
when we
was.
had spring.
Right.
Exactly, back when there used to be spring.
That's right.
And we can report there is no one buried on the wrong side of the line. That was our primary concern.
Right.
We should also thank Pope Hoffman
Right.
and Ian and Hannah Bowles, Jim Rapetti, and there was one other.
And Rusty.
Well,
Rusty, of course.
Yes. And also the other cemetery member, right, who was excellent in helping too. So that's wonderful.
Is Rusty the gentleman, Rusty was from Norfolk County?
No,
That
Norfolk
was
County
Joe.
is
Oh, that's
Joe
Joe.
McNichols.
Joe, good for
Yes.
you.
He was wonderful.
Yeah, he's
Thank you.
really good.
Good for you, yeah.
He's fabulous.
Excellent.
The registered land surveyor was the one who clarified for us the nature of the error and proposed the fix. So,
Wonderful. Well, and we're so lucky to have Felicia here. Mrs. Hoffman is here as our town clerk. I would take a motion then to,
I move that we accept the release of the deed, Madam Chair.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Would you like us to sign?
Please. Black, blue, it doesn't matter. This is official business.
Very official.
Right.
Permanent record.
Today's date, yeah?
Mr. Ramsey, one of the things I can report on my morning walks at 0500, the fences, all of the fences that abut that side of the cemetery did not blow down in, in all this storm and winter and all, there's probably half the number of tree limbs, but yeah, no issues.
Thank you all for bearing with us this. We are so pleased to have Mrs. Hoffman here so that we can do the notarizing right here, as it should be.
And then let her go home for dinner.
Yes, please.
That's right.
We'll be over later.
Once I figure out whatever it is, right?
It's not in the oven.
How lucky we are to have a notary public here, really.
We aim to please.
I'll tell you, it's a wonderful thing.
At work, I needed something notarized, so I found a notary in that building, and I was the first piece of paper he had notarized.
Really,
So
the
he was saying to me,
momentous.
what do you think I fill out here?
That's great.
Get that back to Mom. You're all set.
Thank you so
Thank you for your
much.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Wonderful. Next on the agenda, we have the opportunity to execute the memorandum of agreement about the health insurance benefits. We did talk about this at our last meeting. Is there anything else that you'd like to summarize? I thank you very much, Mrs. Hunter. You participated in that process, along with Mr. Ramsey and the rest of our negotiating team.
Right, it was a very good negotiation session. Kevin Feely, our attorney, represented both us and the regional schools. He did an excellent job. He was really knowledgeable about the law. We also hired Marsh to put together a comparative study of the various health plans that are out there, which we shared with all the unions. Marsh also made a presentation to all the unions, answered everybody's questions. At the end of the day, can we talk about the outcome? So at the end of the day, all unions decided to stay with West Suburban. What we did learn from Marsh's study was West Suburban, as far as providers of municipal health care, were really on the cutting edge, beginning to understand how plan design needs to change. That was the one really eye-opening part of this negotiation, is the knowledge of all of the unions that plan design needs to change, that towns can no longer afford to deliver the types of plans that we all had, years ago. And I think the process really worked because we all had the same information, we shared the information, and at the end of the day, the outcome from a delivery service, I believe our employees are getting really good health care still, but the town is saving money because of the change in plan design, and will continue to save money as employees continue to get very good health care. So that's an outcome that I think we can all feel good about.
I'm delighted, and I also am so pleased about the 3-year, because it will be an appropriate amount of time to help attract other members to perhaps try the high deductible plan, all sorts of things.
And that to me was something I did not expect, is the number of questions and the openness towards the high deductible plans with health savings accounts, which have shown, statistics have shown that really is beneficial to both the healthcare user as well as the healthcare provider, because you have skin in the game and you need to really shop the different services that are being provided. And the school negotiation team had really done, I don't know if the MTA gave them, the teachers, gave them information, but they had a lot of information about high deductible plans, and they had talked to other towns that had moved to them. So it was a very, very good negotiation session.
Truly win-win.
Well, we thank you all, because I know it was quite a team effort, and thank you so much for doing that.
I'll tell you, the key to this was Kevin.
He's wonderful.
Right. He was really good, answered everybody's questions, because we were one of the last towns to actually go through this process. And he had negotiated for other towns. He had a lot of really good data.
Right.
And
On the ground.
on the ground. And our open enrollment, we'll see at that point how big the switch is to the high deductible plans. What did happen was Rate Saver has gone away. So West Suburban no longer carries or Rate Saver. And so there's the benchmark plan, the high deductible plan, Fallon plans. The town, we were also very lucky to have Jerry as part of the negotiation team. You know, Jerry Lane knew a lot about what West Suburban was doing. He was able to answer a lot of questions, do a lot of the pro forma calculations for us with Dawn Fattori at the region. You know, again, it's giving people information, sharing the information you have at the table. There wasn't a sense that we were trying to pull one over on anyone. Everybody understood that the rate saver was going away. We can't afford to fund healthcare the way it's been funded, that the healthcare environment is changing, and I really think it was a win-win. And the other takeaway was all parties also recognize that healthcare is going to continue to evolve, the delivery of healthcare, and we need, we're going to, unfortunately, it's not one and done. We're going to be continuing to discuss these changes in plan design, and to me, what was really good to hear was, Marsh saying, West Suburban really understands this, and they understand that plan design needs to change, and that's what they're working towards, whereas other carriers, such as Maya, haven't really adjusted yet.
That's wonderful. Well, we had the opportunity to really make the right choice with all the right pieces in place, so that's great.
Right.
Mr. Jeffries, anything?
Yeah, I just think, Madam Chair, we were in a very, very good position. We were in a position of strength from our bargaining perspective, and the thing that kept coming back to me time and time again was the term active participation. Active participation on the part of all the constituents who are going to be members of the plan and us as the provider. So we have to be on the same page. It's no longer just as it used to be.
Right, and I know in the open enrollment, there's their education sessions, West Suburban, other benefit consultants are coming in, really, so that each member or each employee of the town of Dover or the region can make a decision that's right for him or her family. Because it's not one size fits all.
That's right.
Everybody's personal situation is a little bit different, and that's what we kept saying. Each employee needs to make the decision that's right for their family.
I think it's excellent. Well, I certainly thank you all for wonderful work. So I would take a motion.
So I will make a motion that we accept the memorandum between the town of Dover and the various unions, including the Dover teachers, for a 3-year agreement commencing July 1st, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2021, to continue to provide health care benefits through the West Suburban Health
Excellent. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Wonderful. The next item on the agenda, do we have no signatures on this yet? We'll do this afterwards. Perfect. Thank you very much. The next item brings us to the opportunity, which all three of us have been looking forward to, the chance to discuss the articles on our town meeting on the warrant. And I would like very much, we've talked about how we'd like to do this. In some cases, we are not going to elect to vote, but we still feel that on some of these articles that it would be helpful. Our role, of course, is to educate the voters at town meeting, and so a discussion about some of these articles right now will, I think, prove to be helpful for the people who are watching from home, and it gives us an opportunity because the three of us discuss right here, so it'll be wonderful for us to have the chance as well. So with that said, I'm going to suggest that we have a number of boilerplate articles that we probably don't need to discuss, but I will perhaps go to Article 11, which is
Is that a
about...
pun, Madam Chair? Boilerplate?
That's right.
Mr. Ramsey,
Thank you, Mr. Ramsey.
5 points.
So, thinking about Article 11, Certainly been the subject of a lot of conversation in town, will continue to be, and is going to be an important article coming before town meeting. It is about the replacement of the boilers at Carroll Community Center, and I will open the floor to my two colleagues. Your thoughts on Article 11?
So I can start. So Article 11, I was the liaison to the capital budgets. This was an article that was very difficult for me to vote on or make a decision on what was the right choice. I thoroughly agree that it is our responsibility to provide heat to a building, but I also struggled with the process that was put in place. I struggled with the lack of definitive answers to certain questions. I think some excellent questions were raised. I think the question regarding whether or not we had looked at alternative energy, alternative sources for boilers was a good question. I thought the question about one boiler versus two boilers was an excellent question. And I had hoped that, like other committees, we would have been able to do an energy study so that we could have answers to those questions. I understand that if there is a positive vote and funds are granted, that there will be an energy study, but in my mind, there would have been a lot more credibility to our argument had we been able to give concrete answers to those questions. And so that's why I struggled with this article. At the end of the day, I was not at capital budgets meeting when the vote was taken because I was at a company board meeting, but I would have voted reluctantly in favor of the boilers. I still am, I understand that I do believe we need to provide heat, but I think this is a much bigger question. I also fully understand from all the conversations that we had that just replacing the boilers, all that was going to do was provide a stable source of heat to the building, and putting new boilers in would not in any way fix the heat distribution. And I don't think that was ever the intention of this article. This article was just to ensure that there was a stable source of heat. So that's my feeling on it.
Thank you. Mr. Jeffries?
Madam Chair, I think Mrs. Hunter said it very, very well in terms of the context. I was in favor of Article 11. We moved Article 11 forward. I've been in favor of the article for many different reasons, but I've said this to many people, and I've said it publicly, I've said it at this meeting, and I've said it to people privately. Whenever we get a conversation about Carroll and about the program, 3 conversations break out simultaneously. And you get, in the context of this article, people break off into, as Mrs. Hunter just described, first and foremost, it's a maintenance. We have a fiduciary responsibility to maintain a building. We have a building, we have a property, it's a valuable property, it provides a valuable service, it provides a lot of people with a very important role. So we have to maintain that building. So that's number one, a maintenance issue. We've had deferred maintenance, there's that conversation around the maintenance issue. The second conversation that happens immediately is the future. What should we do with the future of the building? Should there be another study? And of course, if you use the word study, in some conversations you have to duck when it comes out of your mouth or the mouth of whoever they're talking about, because there have been at least 7 comprehensive studies in the 19 years that we've had control of the building. So
Is it 19 or 15?
I don't know, depends on who you talk to. It depends on when the building was given to us. Some people would say it's 18, some people 15, some people, this is the 19th year.
See, we need that timeline.
It's a 90-year-old conversation with regards to the life expectancy of the boilers. So, maintenance, future, and then of course, what's the methodology? How are we going to do this? How much money? How are we going to appropriate the amount of money? So instantly 3 conversations break out. I feel the importance of this is we have to have a direction. The direction has to be, we are giving people a choice. It's their choice, but we have to be prepared with ultimately the responsibility from a fiduciary standpoint to maintain an asset. That's right, okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your sharing, both of you. I'm coming at this a little differently. My feeling is that the questions that you were posing about other heat, how many boilers, those questions, my appreciation for the process is that that's a part of the design phase. So what we are bringing to the townspeople is this fiduciary responsibility of we need to change 90-year-old boilers to keep the building open. If there is an opportunity further down the road or with Article 15 to in fact change the distribution and improve the comfort level in the building, that's fine, but the boilers keep the building open. And because I believe it's a statutory responsibility for us as select people to make sure that that happens, then of course I'm fully in favor of this. The cost of $600,000 was arrived at through 2 engineer studies, one in 2014 and a second one in 2017. And the reason that the price was established was that it would cover the project of replacing the source of heat, whatever that was going to be. And so that's what we're bringing to the townspeople. That's what I'm asking for a vote on at town meeting with Article 11. We would like to hear from the townspeople how they feel about changing 90-year-old boilers in our community center. And the reason that I have always been in favor of considering this as a separate question from Article 15 is because we can get to 15, but I want to use it as a preface. We can have that conversation about the future of the building, to your point about what is the future of Carroll? Is it the building that serves our needs? Is it what we want? Do we want more dramatic renovations? Do we want to use the plan as it exists in Article 15? We can have those conversations, but we can only have those conversations if the building stays open. So as far as I'm concerned, I am all in both feet on Article 11.
Can I just make one other comment, Madam Chair, with regards to the building?
Sure.
And the process and the money? So.
We're just talking about the boilers here.
The bo-
So
the boilers.
Article 15.
The boilers, right, just thank you, yeah, in the context of the boilers. So if we are to replace or to maintain 90-year-old boilers, if we're going to go down the path of maintain what we have and not replace what we have, because then it's the argument I've heard, where do you draw the line in terms of good money and after bad money? Putting new money into a 90-year-old boiler or replacing boilers in a 90-year-old building. We still have to be prepared financially to keep the building functioning. So that would mean having alternatives to keeping the building going if the boilers fail.
And cost for those alternatives.
And the cost. So we're going to have a cost component regardless to keep the building functioning.
Good point. Excellent
You
point.
stole my point, but we do.
Good. That makes my day.
Did you read my notes?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, we do know that hospitals have temporary boilers. We also know that the cost to run those temporary boilers is high. So I think that, I agree with you, there is a cost component. And with you too, it is our statutory responsibility to supply heat. So if those boilers go down, if they go down March 1st, it's a much smaller cost than it would be if they go down November 1st. And the way things go down, they would go down November 1st and you wouldn't be able to replace them. So that is, it is a number we should be able to give a little guidance on if we're asked.
Well, and the 600,000 is not rock hard. In
No,
other
I
words,
recognize
it's a
that.
little bit like having an outside estimate on the bathrooms, for example, and the bathrooms came in well under that estimate. So this is only going to the townspeople to say, we believe, based on 2 engineering reports, one validating the other, that for $600,000, we can replace the source of heat and keep that building open. That's what we're asking the townspeople to vote on.
Right, and I think to John's point, this is more of an emotional issue. With Carroll, you can't just have one conversation, you're having 4 conversations at once. And so when we started looking at these articles, we said, let's separate the two because the boiler's heat is a we need heat to
Right.
keep the building open.
That's right.
And I still think we did the right thing, but by splitting those articles, there are additional arguments that come into play or additional comments. So at the end of the day, the 3 of us sitting here, it is our responsibility to keep that building open, maybe not indefinitely, but if those boilers go down, we need to keep the building open
Correct.
for some amount of time, and that's going to cost us money. And so another concern is if this gets voted down, do we have funds available for us to be able to pay? Because if it's over $200,000, our reserve fund isn't enough. So that brings up the question, is there a way to have a plan B in place potentially at town meeting? And we need to talk to town council about that to ensure that we can at least keep the building heated and try and move this whole process forward.
Well, and also my understanding is that it's not even a guarantee if you can afford it. Even if you can afford it, it's not a guarantee you can find temporary boilers.
Right, I don't know, you
know?
could be, I am not an HVAC expert, so.
Right, nor am I. So I appreciate it. Anything else to add to Article 11?
No.
We can move right into Article 15.
Why don't we?
And that's what I would
Right.
suggest too. Who would like to just open the conversation on 15?
All right, I'll start again. So I really appreciated the process of getting the information out there and starting the dialogue on the future of Carroll and Article 15. What I learned by going to those open hearings in which we got very, very good attendance was that there is somewhat of a desire in the town for us to look at what it might cost to, the 3.4 million is just the need to have. It's getting new boilers, controls, updating certain lighting, but the building's still gonna look like the building. And there were a lot of comments about, well, how much more would it cost me to make this nice, to make it look less institutional? And then, on the flip side, there were also questions, well, it's too big, and we know it's too big. Well, what would it cost to tear it down and build a building that's right size? The one thing I did hear in all these meetings was nobody ever questioned that this was a community center that was being used. It was, I think there was no question about that, whereas years before with all the studies, it was should we keep the building? Is there a need for this building in town or not? And to me, that question was answered. The town agrees this is a building we use. We use it both for town services and for different activities that our citizens sponsor. So I would like to take a step back and say, and I agree with you, John, study is a bad word, but
Depends on the.
right, but to put together a committee that focuses on two things. One, we know what it costs. We know what it costs to do what you need to do. That what would it cost to make the building a little bit nicer? And then, does it make sense to tear it down and right-size a building for the town services that are in there? And I don't think that would take more than 9 months to do. And I think it would be, if you have schematics, you present these options and you let the town vote once and for all, and see if the town has an appetite to spend more. But I don't think it's a debate anymore about whether or not
We need a
we need
community
it.
center.
Right,
I agree with you.
we have
Right,
one,
right.
we use it,
Right.
and that debate is over and done with.
Which is great.
Right. I also just add a side note, because there were lots of comments about, is the building really used? How many people are in there? So recently, a member of my family had ACL, MCL replacement, and I learned that I could pick up a walker at the C of A. So Tuesday morning, 11 o'clock, I walked in there and the place was hopping.
Right.
I'll tell you, I was ready to sit down and do puzzles, and they had good coffee and cake. So if people don't think it's being used, just stop in there sometime, because there are people there.
It's a hub.
Right.
There's no question. It's a hub.
And that to me solidified, wow, I would really like to make this an even nicer place for our seniors in Dover to go to, because, this may be their big outing for the week. It would be just nice to give people a place to go to that's in your hometown. Those are my comments.
Thank you. John?
Thank you, Robin. I agree. It goes back to, it's an extension of Article 11, Madam Chair, and an extension of the comments that I made earlier with regards to 3 different conversations, 4 different conversations. And this, you could probably even segment the conversations more so. You could probably say there's conversations about the study, the conversations about the architectural study, the architectural studies that have come before. You could talk about the deferred maintenance. You could talk about all the things that have been going on in that building for whether it's 19 years, 15 years, 90 years, 43 years, depending upon what section of the building. Literally, you have 3 different buildings that have been built. So they create value. They are value. The buildings themselves have tangible value to them, which we have to maintain. So I like I was all in. I was all in with regards to this. Where the segmentation comes is once you start having different conversations with different people. We had one. We all had one. We were all part of the conversation on Monday for the Council on Aging luncheon. So you had about 100 people at lunch, and
It was Tuesday because I was in New York and
thank
I
you.
couldn't attend this.
Tuesday, I apologize. It's the end of the week.
It was a wonderful luncheon.
It was a wonderful luncheon, and thank you to all the volunteers of the Council on Aging and there who gave a lot of input
Right.
to this process.
Right.
So this process has been ongoing, and we go back to having the conversations about the studies that have taken place, the ones that have come before us, this board, in the past. So in the context of the number, we have to be prepared, whether it's this year, next year, or at any point in the future. We have to be prepared with how to keep a functional building, an asset for the constituents that have paid for it. Oh, and not just these past years, for the past 90 years. So if we do have, Robin, to your point, if there is a scope that we go to, I want it to be very narrow,
Right, it has
with
to,
very specific times that really
you can't drag
give.
on anymore.
I agree.
Agree, I agree. It has to be, if there is a plan B, it's going to be very tight, very narrowly defined, and with a timetable that is limited in nature. Because we owe it to the people who've been a part of this for decades,
I agree.
not to drag our feet. And I do understand that the process is never going to be perfect, but we have to at least attend to the functionality of the project. So,
Thank you. And I appreciate very much your perspective, because I do agree, this thought of perhaps other options for the building, whether it is, as you said, a more elaborate renovation. I want to remind all of us that Kathy Weld, you reminds us that the language for this project, of even including Article 15, is all maintenance. It's the end of the 17-year renovation, maintenance, deferred maintenance plan, and so you can understand why the move has been to let's finish up the plan. In fact, I believe you were part of the decision to push it all together into one project at this particular time, a couple of years ago. Am I right?
Things come full circle, because back then we were just looking at the boilers, and then everybody said, well, what good are boilers without controls?
Right, and
So we got the
controls.
engineers.
That's right.
So it's very ironic that we felt a need at
Right.
this town meeting to pull the two apart, and then once we got the engineering report, then we realized the ADA compliance kicked in, or the
Right.
state compliance kicked
Right.
in, and then suddenly, instead of $1 million project, you were looking at a 3.4. So things have come full circle.
Right, and I do understand, and I'm not putting you on the spot.
No,
It's
no,
that-
I was
it's
just
that you
thinking
can-
of the irony of it all.
You can think of how we've gotten to exactly this point.
absolutely.
It is the culmination of all of the years that preceded getting us to this particular point. Now the question is, with the users in mind, how do we most thoughtfully move ahead? And again, the wisdom of the voters at the town meeting are going to guide us as to whether or not they want to invest in the completion of this maintenance, deferred maintenance, or whether they are going to be, as you said, in favor of looking again at perhaps a smaller building, or as you very nicely described, a more elaborate renovation plan that would incorporate also the final maintenance project. So I think we do have some questions to take to town meeting, and again, my belief is that this is exactly our responsibility. We take the year between town meetings, in fact, to go through the process, to involve the people who are interested in participating in this process, to vet the questions, to push at other questions and answers, and then we take all of this information to town meeting and take our guidance from town meeting. So this is what we intend to do with 15.
I agree. I'm not at all worried about either side of either of these warrant articles. Because we have shared this board has shared it 45 years ago, when that, what I'll call the eastern side of the building.
The ugly side.
No, for the record, it was Mrs. Hunter who described it as the ugly side of the building.
The side I would like to do the renovation on.
Renovation on, right.
Right, okay.
So in that same amount of time, buildings, major buildings in the Commonwealth have been built, knocked down, and built again.
You're right, you're absolutely
At
right.
15 times the cost of what the original building had cost. So the buildings owe the town nothing. They have served a very useful purpose. But it's our responsibility to the town to maintain the asset.
Right.
So whatever the town decides, whatever town meeting decides, I just want to make absolutely certain that we have the ability, from a funding standpoint, to attach whatever happens to a number that can be delivered. That's where I am.
And the other reminder that I have for all of us, and I imagine this will come up at town meeting as well, is we have programming for Council on Aging and programming for Parks and Rec that depends on that space. So even in this sort of possibility that the town may decide to build new, we have to think about
It's all part of the
housing
decision.
these. Oh, it's going to be a huge part of the decision. How do we provide very adequate and pleasant surroundings for our seniors and for all of our participants in the Parks and Rec program? Because, again, we know from past history, this is not a quick process.
No.
So I appreciate everyone sharing, and I think we will, again, be looking for guidance from town meeting.
Well,
on
Sam Hunter is no longer living in Dover, is that correct? So there's almost an empty nest.
So you're suggesting my home?
We
My
can start
dog would like it.
there.
Rio would be very happy to have anybody come over during the day. He sings very well.
If people want a plan B, I say the Hunter residence is a good place to start.
Excellent.
I don't know if any of you know Bob Cox, but Rio and Bob Cox sing together
Oh, very
frequently.
nice. Very nice.
Oh, my God.
Thank you. Thank you both. Another article that we are certainly interested in, you had expressed some interest in perhaps the warrant article on the water study. Mrs. Hunter, did you want to address that?
I did. You know, well, first of all, I would like to commend the Water Study Committee for all the work that they have done. And I also really appreciated the presentations that have been made regarding this article. I think what is important to recognize with this article is nobody is suggesting currently there's a party going on.
Dover
It's
Foundation.
Dover Foundation rehearsals.
Oh, very good.
I thought somebody was
I did too.
dying.
I thought, oh my gosh.
They're practicing murder scenes.
Thank you very much.
Right, I lost my train of thought. Very distracting.
You were thanking the water
Right,
study.
I know where I was. I think what's important to recognize here is that what this study will do for us is provide us with a baseline of, you know, where the water table is today. It is an investment. It's an investment in our future. You know, it will give us the ability, not next year, not the year after, but maybe in a few years, to understand what happens to the water table when additional households are added, if there were to be additional development, and with the climate change, what's going on.
We
Well, I can tell you,
got
it's,
a rehearsal?
well, there's a rehearsal going on, and no one's hurt. It's all just one rehearsal, so I promise to be able to.
Thank you, Mr. Springer.
Thank you very much.
And so, for me, who is concerned about natural resources, this is an investment that is definitely worthwhile pursuing, the water study.
I appreciate. Any other comments? I was going to add that you make an interesting point about a baseline, because if you remember, when the three of us charged the Board of Health with creating the original Water Study Committee, it was with that in mind. We thought that they were going to be scanning in and incorporating all of our past records on wells and septic systems to give us that baseline. And I believe, my understanding is now, 2 years later, that it has been problematic to find the reports, to be able to put them in any kind of a comprehensive format. And so I believe that this has grown out of this notion that a baseline could be helpful to the town.
Right, and that's correct. And the Water Study Committee in and of itself has citizens of Dover, one of them who is a hydrologist. And I understand that he was instrumental in helping pull together the RFP and designing precisely what the town is looking to put in place, or what the Board of Health.
Right, thank you.
So I am all about planning, planning for the future. So to me, this is an investment in the future of Dover and for the future citizens of Dover.
Yeah, Madam Chair, for me, after reading, and I shared this with the Water Study Committee, after reading the 18,000 pages of documents that Professor Clark gave to us, the one thing I shared with him immediately was, Jerry, there's no evidence here. And he had that coy smile on his face, like the professor whose student came up with the right question, and said, that's exactly it. This is about evidence. This is about creating a baseline, as you both have said, and about having the ability to say, here are the facts. So I think this is about one word, evidence. We're going to at least have the foundation of evidence.
And it's an investment. You know, the town needs to decide, do they want to invest $150,000 in it?
Okay, thank you. And the last one that I believe we might discuss is, would you both like to discuss the proposition of eliminating plastic bags at our 4 retail outlets here in Dover?
I
am all for it.
Yeah, you had the right word. Yeah, you're all in. I think we're all in.
Right.
And I give the two young ladies just all the credit in the world.
Right.
Have put this together. It'll be one of the highlights of town meeting.
Absolutely. In fact, duly noted at our open hearing,
Right.
with all of the presentations, there was only one round of applause, and it was for Annabelle and Avery after they presented. And so, yes, I think you're right. They'll bring that to town meeting on the 7th of May. So, excellent.
For 25 years, I've taken my L.L.Bean bags to Roach Brothers, Trader Joe's. And so, to me, I'm glad everybody jumped on my band.
Oh, there you go. Thank you for your leadership, as always.
Well, and not to put Mrs. Canny on the spot, but if I remember, don't you pack your bags when you go to California so that you have them?
Yeah.
Could you share that story?
I learned the hard way. I did go to California today on paperwork, and I went to a CVS to just buy some stuff for my condo, and I had a basket full of things and a wallet and keys in my hand, and they said, "Do you want a bag? Or do I get to keep a basket?" No, no. So I had to buy bags, and it was their bags were $1 a piece.
Right.
They're like these really thick bags, but I was just like looking at all the stuff like, no, I don't. So I've been trained that way.
And so you take them back and forth.
I do take it back and forth.
California. So I think
They're just in a suitcase and just sit there.
we can all learn
Yeah.
the times they are changing.
They are changing.
Right, they
So
are.
I keep canvas bags in my car, just
so
in
do I.
case I have to go shopping. And when I travel, I take a couple of canvas bags too.
And I have a system whereby I carry 2 canvas bags, you've seen me, into the market, and when they are full, I know I'm through shopping.
I haven't tried that.
And that's a great
A
system.
little lady in the city has the pull card,
Uh-huh.
goes to the markets and fills that and goes home.
Right, exactly. So I just
After
know.
checking out, right?
Excellent. Am I passing on anything that you both would like to discuss?
No, I think that on the other articles, on the other selectmen articles, Madam Chair, we really have covered a lot of ground. And I think that there's really nothing that we need to add and take time to add that's not going to be discussed at town meeting, or already hasn't been discussed, so.
Thank you.
I think
Article 4 is always the bulk of the spend, but, again, I think the Warrant Committee does an excellent job in providing analytics for that, and, the town, and vetting all of the budgets, and the same can be set for capital budgets. You know, we have some good, robust processes in place. This year, from the open hearing, the school budgets are almost flat, which has been the first time in many years. You know, some of that is driven just by luck with special education. Some of that's also by the initiatives that the school committees have taken to provide services in the town of Dover or share those services with Sherborne. So, you know, again, I think all the committees and the staff that we've hired to run our schools or police force, everybody understands that resources aren't limitless, and they really do make sure that level services are delivered at a value.
Right.
And that's all we can ask for. And I think Article 4 this year does reflect that. I think, you know, what we've done with health insurance, we're going to continue to see savings over the next 3 years. And that was a big increase for us in prior years. So again, I think we're doing all the right things, or trying to do all the right things.
I agree, and Madam Chair, for me, the only other item that you know, and everybody knows, and Kate knows, Bob probably knows as well, that I'm a big proponent, advocate of, is from a free cash standpoint, that we maintain our enviable position. The town has the ability, of all the things we just covered, and all of the articles that we were just discussing, and specifically with health insurance, and all the hard work Mrs. Hunter put in with her committee, to have the ability to negotiate from a position of strength, is because we've had such strong fiscal discipline and have a enviable free cash position. And we have to be very diligent of that, maintaining that free cash position. And so that would be the only thing, and that's going to be a conversation that we'll get to continue to have with Warrant before all the decisions are made. So that's my, everybody that knows us knows that's my very, that's a big important thing to me, because we have worked extremely hard to get there, and I wanted to maintain that position of strength.
So, you know, last year we had some discussions with Warrant about free cash and you know, potentially taking some of the free cash and setting up stabilization accounts for expenses that we know will be incurred in the future, you know, potentially looking at trusts for OPEB, not so much at the town, but trying to fund those for the region. And I think we got busy this year, but I would love to reopen those conversations and not do them right at the end of the budget season. Maybe it's a conversation we could have earlier in the fiscal year, just to brainstorm about what are some of the things that we could do that would continue to keep us in a strong financial position.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'd be a great idea, and that's an initiative I'd love to look at next year and certainly have us be a big part of. We are in an enviable position. There's numerous studies at Boston College Center for Retirement, and there's an entire program dedicated just to the impact of budgets and budget shortfalls on employees, municipal employees. So I think we just have to be vigilant. We have to be very good stewards of their future, because we want to be able to provide continuity. We want to be able to provide coverage. We want to be able to provide funding for all of these things that people are looking forward to. And it's a very important negotiating part for us, bringing in talent, retaining talent, and having this enviable position that we find ourselves in.
Well, and it puts us in a wonderful position for borrowing money, too.
It absolutely is.
It's a tremendous asset.
But you know, the bottom line is, it's the right thing to do.
Correct.
It really is. So I'd love to have that conversation, to have that be a part of what we do.
And early, like not,
Early.
you know, last year I thought we started a great conversation, but it was it was too late. It was too late to really do anything very productive.
And is that always the last warrant article?
It is,
We were
well,
discussing
it
it.
has to be, it has to
It has to
be.
It balances the budget.
It
so-
balances the budget.
It
It
has
essentially
to be.
has to be, because it balances the budget.
Right.
But I think if you have conversations
You have an
early
idea
on.
of how it's going, right?
Right, but, and you have a strategy, you can communicate that strategy. You know, this is why we're doing what we're doing. These are the steps that we think should be taken to maintain our fiscal strength.
Because of the emotional energy that went into last year's town meeting, and the topics and just the energy in the room that was taken by a number of the articles. By the time we got to the discussion
Sucked you dry?
I think there were 6 people awake
Oh, right.
in the
Yeah, it was
audience.
a late meeting.
It was just emotionally draining,
It
so,
was one night.
and it was one day.
And it was an important discussion last night to acknowledge on warrant the fact that for turning back some of the free cash, it really didn't make a dent in the taxes.
Yeah.
You know, it was an interesting experiment.
There was
but
a
it-
conversation? Oh.
Well,
How
just,
timely of you, John.
Yeah, it was my gong clanging. That was
Your ears were ringing last night.
Exactly.
Or were you at the meeting?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
I wasn't. But I would, can I just make one comment about something you just brought up? One night. Do you know the town of Wellesley, for those of you that know that we are abutting the town of Wellesley, is on their 6th night of town meeting
wow.
with no end in sight.
Oh my gosh.
What's the issue?
It's just the way that things are deliberated now. Back 10 years ago or 15 years ago in the old days, 5 nights, 1 week, that was it.
That's night 6.
5
Night
nights?
6.
Wow.
Night number 6. And I only know that because they're town council, and I happened to be working out last night in the same class, and he was.
You had time to work out?
No, this was prior to it. It was, yeah, approaching night number 6.
So do they stop at a certain time? Like,
They do.
They go 7 to...
No, I don't know, but they do stop and then pick up the next day.
Wow.
So we
Do you
are,
get the weekends off? or-
that's a very good question, I don't know.
Well, I guess we should consider ourselves very fortunate because that isn't the way we approach our annual town meeting. And with our clickers again this year, we're looking at hopefully a very smooth and efficient town meeting, and we'll hope to wrap it all up in that one evening as well. So that's a good thing.
Not 6.
That's right.
Yeah, or more. Last year they went 8.
Well, I certainly thank you both so much for the discussion, because we have, all of us, looked forward to sharing with the people in town about our thoughts on some of these warrant articles, and I very much appreciate your candor and sharing. Thank you both very much. The next item on the agenda is to execute the annual town election warrant. As you know, we will have the election 2 weeks to the day after the annual town meeting.
I filed the election warrant.
I move, Madam Chair, that we accept the annual town election warrant.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the land donation offer, and Mr. Ramsey, could I ask, I assume that this is related to the cemetery line? Or, no, it's not, I
It is not.
apologize.
This is
It's on Hunt.
something completely different, which has just developed. The Dover Development Associates, who built the Donnelly Estates, have very generously offered to donate, essentially, it's $1 consideration, 3 2-acre parcels of land to the town, specifically to the Conservation Commission. If they are interested, and we have received a letter agreement which already clears the town and the Conservation Commission, if they so choose, if the selectmen agree to forward this to them next week. An access agreement, so we can go on the property and perform due diligence in terms of surveys, appraisals, a Phase 1 environmental study. So this would be the very beginning of a process that we fortunately have been through recently in the past with the Gould parcels.
Right,
So
right.
these 3 properties are up on Hunt Drive, and you will see on the last page that they either abut or are in close approximation to properties that are already owned by DLCT and the Conservation Commission. So
Oh, how
this is-
lovely.
This is.
Are they contiguous?
Two of them
Oh,
are
wonderful, yeah, that's great.
to each other, and then one of them is to a property that's DLCT's, and then there's other DLCT right across the street. So this is really wonderful, potentially, and so we are asking your permission to commence this process this evening and forward this letter agreement and the additional information that's contained in your packet to the Conservation Commission for their consideration.
Wow. How fortunate.
It is.
Oh, my
It's
goodness.
wonderful. We had some inkling towards the end of the last year, but there wasn't time. It came in December to really get this process up and running. So now they've come back, and they're now making this generous offer to the town.
Wow.
Yeah, I assume they're on buildable lots.
Is the Hunt Club behind it? Is that what the 20
You
acres
tell
is?
me, we were trying to figure that
No.
out earlier. I can't say, I know that there's a 20-acre parcel back
Right,
there.
that's what
but-
I think it might be, so then
I think the
all
Hunt Club
of this
is
is
the
open space.
next article, next
Next-
parcel of land.
The 20 acres?
20,
okay.
I think the 20 acres.
Yeah, I can't say, but I'm sure that the Conservation Commission will very quickly identify whether or not it's contiguous to that as well.
There is a big, beautiful brown horse that is in that paddock right there.
I think I know which horse you're
It is
talking about.
gorgeous.
Yes, yeah, I drive by every morning on my way to work.
Do you?
I do.
Yeah.
I
What's a
do. It's
beautiful,
nice
what
way
a
to
beautiful
start the
cut
day.
through.
It is.
Yes, right, right. Well,
Careful
that's-
of the school kids driving,
Yeah.
who woke up too late. Trying to get to school quickly.
So, Madam Chair, do you need a motion to?
Yes,
accept
please,
the
and
letter?
I mean, this is just amazing.
It is.
So I move that we accept the letter of understanding on the offer to the town on behalf of the Dover Development Associates.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then you will be sending this on to
We will
Concom?
forward this on
Ah.
at the beginning of the week to Conservation Commission. I'm sure they'll be
Right.
excited by
Right.
the prospect.
Do they know yet?
No, they do not.
Oh,
We
my
wanted to bring it to
gosh.
the board
Oh, that's
first, so that you
wonderful.
could have, give us permission to commence.
Of
the
course,
process.
they'll be so thrilled.
Oh, yes, yeah. Really, just it's amazing that we have another offer of donation.
I think that the Wildwoods Trail, actually, you
That's
follow
what I'm
it to its,
thinking. That's
I think
what
it comes
think
out
too,
in
right.
here.
Because it definitely comes out onto DLTC land.
Right, I think it's right here, and so, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing.
Very
Because
beautiful.
this is all DLTC.
Yes, right, exactly, and so I think that this is the trail coming right out to Hunt Drive. Very beautiful, such beautiful land back there, it's excellent. Wonderful. So, we are coming into our other business section of the meeting.
Are you ready, John?
I'm ready. Weekend update.
We have a ride for food for September 23rd, and our police chief has spoken with Ms. Katie Siegel, who represents the Ride for Food. She is seeking permission to ride through Dover on September 23rd, 2018. This is their 5th year, and each previous event has gone off without a hitch. The organizer contracts for a public officer detail as per my request. I would have no objection or reservation to the board approving this request.
I move that we accept the Ride for Food and Miss Katie Siegel's request.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, we have a number of one-day special liquor requests. Still no invitations.
I know.
And Shakespeare in the Garden. Now, don't you think Mr.
There's
Ramsey
no
should be invited to Shakespeare in the Garden?
You're jumping.
I know, but I'm just, all right, I apologize. April 12th.
Today.
Flower Show, today. Flower Show Award Ceremony at Mass Horticultural Society in Elm Bank, today. April 15th, a farm dinner at Powesett Farms. April 21st, birthday party at Hale Reservation. April 27th, Spring Fling event. Kate, how can we not be invited to the Spring Fling event? Charles River School.
Kate has her dress.
Charles River School. Yeah. June 29th, Sculpture in Bloom reception, Mass Horticultural Society. July 9th, Volunteer Appreciation event and cocktail reception, Mass Horticultural Society at Elm Bank. July 26th, Art on the Green, Mass Horticultural Elm Bank. August 1st, Shakespeare in the Gardens, Mass Horticultural Society, starring Dave Ramsey. August 16th, Goddess in the Gardens.
Don't go with that one, John.
Goddesses in the gardens.
Don't go with that.
Goddesses in the Gardens. I'm gonna leave that alone. Mass Horticultural
Would be
Society.
best
Elm
that
Bank.
you do. I am
Excellent.
curious about that event.
Right.
Public enjoys the gardens with musicians. That's what it is.
Wow.
That sounds like fun.
That
Well, it
sounds like
does.
fun.
It just, there's some wonderful sounding
Wine and
parties.
malts,
Sounds
beverages.
great.
This is the public's welcome, John. You can attend this.
800 attendees, Madam Chair.
Whoa.
5:30 to 8 p.m. You're good.
And I think that's going to be a very busy one-lane bridge for
It
the
is.
800 attendees.
It really will be.
Well, I would take a motion on the parties.
Move that we accept the request for one-day special liquor license, Madam Chair.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. We have the opportunity to approve our minutes from March 22nd, the open session meeting minutes. Again, Mr. Schiller, thank you so much for such beautiful minutes. Any questions?
No.
Very well done, Mona. Move we approve the minutes of the board meeting March 22nd, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any citizens' comments?
No.
No?
We're good.
Mr. Springer, you're a citizen.
No, the issues that capital budget committee worked on, you guys are pretty thorough, so.
Was that a compliment from you?
Yeah.
Let the record show.
Can I ask a question of Mr. Springer? Is that appropriate? Mr. Springer, did the capital budget committee have any specifics that they discussed with regards to Article 11?
The boiler replacement.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I think Robin really did go through all of the specific issues that were raised at the capital budget committee, absolutely. I was, and the discussion that was held here tonight really echoes all of the work, all of the discussions in both in the capital budget committee around Article 11 and Article 15. I thought it was pretty thorough.
So,
And that's important, that, and Ms. Kate was also on capital budgets. It wasn't a one meeting and you're done. The capital budget spent almost the entire budget season looking at the Carroll, having conversations with all the stakeholders. I think Mr. Ramsey came to 2 of our meetings, right?
In between my performances for Shakespeare.
Right, in between these rehearsals and performances.
No, not gossip,
Right.
no, I wasn't
So
there.
there was a lot of a conversation that took place, and, a lot of differences of opinions amongst the members. We would go back and try and get answers to questions that had been posed. So I thought, from the capital budget standpoint, it was really a robust vetting of both Article 11 and Article
Yeah,
15.
and as it should be, I mean, these are large dollars in requests. It's a big issue for the towns. I think everybody on both committees, Warrant Committee too, wanted to do thorough research to make sure that the town had the information, the residents of the town could be informed and be able to make a sound decision.
Well, I would just like to say thank you both, to you, Bob, and to Capital Budget, and Kate, to the Warrant, and the work that you've done, the leadership that you've both provided to both groups. And I think it's refreshing for us to hear that we're not far apart, we're not far off, that we're sort of on the same page, and it's a matter of fine tuning this process so we get it absolutely right. So ultimately, thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, I think it goes back to the beginning of this whole process where we voted on the warrant articles, and we talked at length, especially when it came to Article 11 and Article 15, about this, how this was an opportunity for the process
Yeah.
to play itself out. And we had confidence that the process would ultimately lead to the right place.
So we are bringing this to town meeting, both articles and all of the articles, for guidance from the townspeople. So I think that that's where we need to be.
Right.
Yeah, I feel very, very comfortable that town meeting attendees are going to get exactly what they need to be able to make this decision. And
I trust that you're absolutely correct. Yes, right, what we're doing. Good. Excellent. If there are no citizens' comments
So
beyond,
actually, I have something.
Yes.
So I just wanted to remind everybody that it's the Dover Cleanup Day on April 28th.
thank you, right.
And there's been, next door, articles, things have been posted. On Facebook, things have been posted. They're looking for team leaders.
I am a captain
Okay,
of Church Street.
Right, I'm
There
planning
you
to
go.
be a captain unless somebody in my neighborhood has already taken up, volunteered for that position, but I
It
do
took Carroll,
plan
it's
to
been
work.
about 3 seconds to work me into be captain of Church
If
Street.
you've never done it before,
Oh, it's
it's
wonderful.
really
Oh,
fun.
it is fun, absolutely.
We do it, I do it in my wide, I know that you do it.
I do it.
I do it, and
All-
Doug
all
Wolf
there.
at Doug's Garage is the recipient of all the trash that I pick up in my morning walk. So Doug, thank you very much. You're at home watching, but we do it, so.
It just blows my mind what people discard from their cars. I mean, where do you think it's going? There's cups and,
Well, and there seems to be a lot of debris from food and liquor.
right, oh, a lot of liquor bottles, a lot.
Nips, larger
The nips are
bottles.
very popular around Noanet Woods, which is where I clean up.
And I'll tell you the other thing that I see all over are the tiny little plastic cups for the nicotine gum.
Oh.
That they're everywhere.
But I'm sad to report, I have not found your other shoe.
I know.
Sergeant Mayo and I had that conversation yesterday. It's still missing.
It's
been replaced, but it's still missing.
Would you mind doing that for us?
No, not at
That would be
all.
wonderful. Thank you, Mrs. Bogart.
Oh, that's fine. William O'Donnell, the Register for the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds, will be holding office hours in Dover on Thursday, May 10th, from 10 a.m. to noon time. It will be here in the Dover Townhouse in this very room.
Oh, great.
And the Register and members of his staff are inviting the public to come in. They'll help answer any questions people may have or address any concerns about any registry of deed matters. And they will supply information on the Massachusetts Homestead Act, and internet-ready computers will be on hand for people to print out mortgage
Nice.
discharges, to check on filings, to look at a recorded deed, confirm status on
Wonderful.
any of these items. So they're inviting any interested residents to please come on in and visit with them on May the 10th.
Excellent, thank you for that
Thank you.
announcement, I appreciate that.
Yep.
Good. If there are no further questions or comments, I would take a motion.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you all.